Street Fair, Book 2 of the Fairfolk Chronicles, written by Jeffrey Cook and Catherine Perkins, narrated by Fairy Princess Lolly. Chapter 10, Barrow. "This is just another weird hill," Megan said as they arrived at their destination. Regaining some small amount of her usual animation, Aisling got off the crow and danced. As she did, an illusion fell away, revealing an ancient stone door into the hillside. "Come on!" It took Kasha and Justin working together to move the heavy door, and both were out of breath by the time it moved. Kasha grinned at the young knight. "Told you I'd hope you work up a sweat." Justin blushed. Megan found herself wondering why Lonnie didn't, as she often had, jump to defend her other brother from the usual Kasha harassment. She wondered if she should do it, or if that would give the wrong impression, or how wrong it would be. Justin seemed about to respond himself when Aisling darted inside. Everyone else scrambled after her. Megan watched as Jude leapt from her pocket as a kitten and hit the interior floor as a leopard. "I thought that bigger on the inside thing was just for science fiction," Megan said, as they wound through the passageways. As Justin carefully slid ahead of Megan, Kasha muttered, "Can't be much further." It wasn't true. The passages continued to twist and turn, and, had they not been following Aisling's lead, and the magical light the pixie managed to summon up around herself, Megan was sure that it would have been far worse. As it was, Aisling was still distractible even in her somewhat grimmer mood, urging the Count into flitting into back-and-forth patterns. With such erratic illumination in the dark maze, Justin drew the sword of light from its scabbard. Megan saw the occasional signs of previous intruders, mostly bits of bone or tarnished bits of metal now, as well as signs of traps that had been triggered. Lonnie was happy to assure her that grave robbers got what they deserved. Megan was unsure how much of it was indignation at the crime, and how much was her best friend cheering for the remnants of ancient technology versus the intruders. "How is anything here supposed to know we're not grave robbers?" Megan asked. The first sign of something changing was the hair standing up on the back of Megan's neck, followed by an involuntary shudder. Lonnie apparently felt it too. Anyone else think... Had Kasha moved any slower, that first quick movement might have ended in tragedy. The rushing figure's blade swung towards the group. 1 second, it was just an empty hallway with what looked like an opening into a wider space or room a short way ahead, and then he was there. Kasha got her sword out in time to turn the blade, but not parry it entirely. And the blunt side of the sword grazed Lonnie's forehead, knocking her back into Megan, setting both girls tumbling to the floor. From there, Megan was able to get some idea of the figure. He was dressed head to toe in ancient armor, mostly leathers and bronze plates, which showed signs of rot and tarnish about the edges, but somehow held together even so. A helmet covered his head completely, but green light showed out through the eye holes. A jet-black cloak swallowed the light around it, helping hide his exact motions and causing him to blend into the darkness. His sword showed none of the wear of his armor, but the blade was odd, made of black metal, of uneven construction. Megan's first impression was that it was simply badly made, before recalling the gates back in Fingis, and comments on how hard it was to make sharp blades of unfired iron, but somehow found it worth the effort anyway. The figure had a fae-killing weapon. Kasha, true to her nature, went on the offensive, attacking with rapid, short blows, initially driving the armored figure backwards. Not a blow got through, his sword turning each one aside, but it bought them some space. Maxwell followed his mistress, trying to flank the creature, to either get in quick swipes or create an opening for Kasha. Justin was slightly slower, and the hallway was cramped, but as soon as he saw an opening, he rushed to try to help. Jude crouched against the wall, not fleeing, but apparently unable to move. Panicked thoughts sprang unbidden into Megan's mind. She caught herself pulling herself backwards down the hall, away from the fight and her friends, and forced herself to stop. The thoughts remained, though, and the chill in the air kept growing worse. Kasia, Maxwell, and Justin were holding their own, but barely. It took all three of them to keep him from going back on offense, and both Kasia and Maxwell seemed hesitant, only Justin showing no hesitation in standing up to the figure in ancient armor. Lonnie was still lying on the floor, starting to move again, but slowly. That's when she noticed the tugging on her sleeve, and Aisling's voice cut through the haze. "Megan, singing! Singing! Now!" Her thoughts were crawling, fighting the instinct to escape and break through to the surface. "Huh?" "First rule of bardic magic," Aisling called. Aisling's original words on the topic snuck through. "Providing excellent protection for your horse?" That didn't seem to apply. "That's barding! Totally different! You need to help them!" Aisling seemed focused. Under the pixie, the Count seemed to be actively not panicking the same way Megan was. "Help them?" "Kasia's magic isn't working. He's got cold iron. You can't affect him, but you can help them." Inspiration. Megan remembered that part now. She also remembered how the Bard song had helped clear away Padar's paralyzing terror effect. It wasn't all coming naturally yet, and especially not as naturally as playing with the winds and leaves, but she knew how to do it. Her mind seized on a march, rousing with lots of highs, and she started to sing. The cobwebs started to clear from her mind, and the song got louder as it did. Justin had never faltered, likely protected from whatever magic was happening by the sword of light in his hand. But Megan could see the effect on the others. Jude left the wall, moving opposite his brother to further divide the figure's attention. Kasia and Maxwell fought more confidently, Maxwell lunging in, taking chances with the sword, backing off only at the last moment, while Kasia resumed the rapid blows, finally getting a hit in on one shoulder. They collectively drove the figure back into the open chamber, and Megan, singing louder and louder, managed to stand and follow closer until she reached Lonnie, trying to keep up the song magic going while checking on her friend. Lonnie sat up, waving her off. Trusting that, Megan approached closer, careful to stay out of the way of the experienced fighters, while still helping them fight off whatever had been hitting their minds and hers. Once they were out of the crowded hallway, the numbers started taking a greater toll. First, as the figure reacted to Jude, Maxwell got a deep swipe into one leg. The leather armor tore open, revealing bone beneath, even though the figure appeared to be filling out the armor just fine. Then Kasia's rain of blows impacting the sword put him off balance, and Jude barreled into a leg and the figure dropped to one knee. With Kasia keeping his sword occupied with her own, Justin finally got a clean opening, and the flaming sword separated the helmet from the neck with a sudden bright flare of white light accompanying the swing. Lonnie, Megan, Aisling, and the Count all entered the open chamber while the fighters caught their breath and tended to small wounds. The dusty room was neatly organized, aside from things upset by the moving fight, with 2 more suits of armor, numerous weapons, and sacks of treasure set about the area. A raised platform had been kept clean, with the surface showing recently disturbed dust. "What is this place?" Megan started, before adding, with a bit more urgency, "And what was that thing?" "Burial chamber for an officer," Kasia answered the first, not glancing up from tending to the cats. "And that was a wait," Aisling covered the second. Okay, what's a wight? Megan asked, quickly amending with, aside from really creepy. And please don't go into the paint store spiel. I already know ivory from eggshell. Aisling showed no signs of wandering off on a tangent, taking the skeletal figure, who still seemed to fill out the armor better than a skeleton seemed like it should be able to, deadly serious. Undead! So that guy is some kind of, creepy raising the dead guy? Not like zombies or vampires or anything. They don't need necromancers or George Romero bringing them back. Wights used to be legends in their time. Warriors, knights, sorcerers, bards, officers, all different, but all big time. The stories told about them have their own kind of magic, and that combines with some of the biggest badasses having the will to decide that they're not entirely dead yet, Aisling explained, relatively reasonably for a pixie. Megan studied the helmet, then the body to which it had been connected. Aisling was still glowing, and Justin still had the sword out, but the light really did seem to falter more near the body, specifically, as Megan adjusted it, the black cloak. So, is he actually dead this time? She asked. And with all of that, why would he just hang out down here if he was so badass? Aisling rode the Count up onto the platform, which Megan now figured was where the body was laid. Then the pixie continued. Because not enough people remembered who this guy was. Undead need food too, but not like broccoli and ice cream. Zombies need necromancers helping, vampires need blood, and some of the Senate need the votes of their constituents. Wights are sort of like the popular high schoolers. They need their clique acknowledging their awesomeness. So, back in the day, this guy was famous. Then people forgot his name, and he went to sleep. Megan listened as she continued fidgeting with the ultra-black fabric. So, did we disturb him and get him up, or... As she looked to Aisling, she absently handed the cloak to Kasha, who was rummaging in her pack. Aisling shook her head. That's Mummy's. Something had to give this guy a kickstart. Okay, so as long as talking about him won't bring him back, who was he? And what would do that? And, I guess, are there any more? I think a lot of those answers are over here. Lonnie finally spoke up from where she was standing along one wall with Justin. Megan at first was distracted by something on Lonnie's face. She must have been trying to treat the injury from the iron sword. Eventually, Megan remembered to listen. Lots of inscriptions on this wall, Lonnie was saying. I'm guessing they wind around to some of the others too. So what does it say? Megan asked. You'll have to ask Aisling. I don't read whatever ancient language this is. Aisling and the Count fluttered over to Lonnie's shoulder, and the pixie started to read. The piercing eye burns in the deep. Well, that's not ominous, Megan said.
Hello friends, this is Gun for Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Use your troll hammer to ring that little bell icon to get notifications when she posts future videos. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!